Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, one and everybody. After a wee bit of a hiatus because of life, F1 Failcast is back. Myself is Mr. Bolkenberg, or Mr. Torpedo this evening, or this series rather, and alongside me is everyone's favourite taco extraordinaire man. He brings the Mexican to a Mexicant. It's definitely Zero. How are you doing, good sir?
Very good. Even better for that introduction. That's the best introduction you've done in the 9 years we've been working together. That's fantastic. The Mexican. Yeah, I'm excellent. Yeah, it's been a few weeks, right? Because I mean, I went away to Finland, and you went to some events, and we both kind of wanted to wait for the game to be patched a bit because neither of us was in love with it really. So it's good to be back, though. This is our 9th or 10th year.
Yeah.
It's the 10th season, but the 9th year, I think.
Yes, that's correct, yes. Because it doesn't quite work properly. Oh, I've just spotted what you meant about you've colour coordinated the logo.
Yeah. It's a tribute to you, mate. Anyway, I have momentous news.
Oh,
before we go in. Because, well, I mean, I've already spoiled it for you because I told you earlier in the week. But
yes.
After 6 months of looking, I have today's beverage is a can of Rich Energy, 4 reals. I have to say the can is very nicely designed, right? And I'll tell you the saga about how I got it. In the end, I had to buy it from a Dutch shipping company who mysteriously had 3 crates in their warehouse and decided to offload them to their website. I paid €35 plus shipping for 24 cans. And obviously it's got all the premium British energy drink and everything, and you can see here, I'll put it up for the camera. Where is it? There we go. You've got the Union Jack design there, established 2010, which I don't think it was. And then there's another Union Jack on the side, but then inescapably, and I think the camera might flip it, what you may see there is made in Austria.
Ooh.
So very British. Perfection in flavour formulated to provide increased alertness, attention and energy, apparently. Now, here's the kicker, and we've got a lot to talk about with Rich Energy, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the kicker, as I crack it open, right?
Does it fizz? Oh, it's down,
it does fizz a little
down
bit.
the gullet.
Now, that's because I got a bit of a sore throat. You might be hearing some gross noises today, everyone. Now, here's the real kicker. As ridiculous as they are, and we are going to cover that, it is actually better than Red Bull.
No.
It is. It doesn't taste as sickly sweet somehow. It's kind of mellower and smoother. You can tell that it's made to blend with alcohol, I think, because it's designed not to have such an intrusive flavour. You know, like Red Bull's got that kind of syrupy sweetness.
Yes.
This has that, but it's kind of like smoothed out a bit, so it's not as I don't know, tacky is a word that comes to mind. You know, like that.
In a way.
Yeah. So there we go, the Holy Grail.
Bizarre. I'm just amazed that you managed to get not just a can, because I've only ever seen them in singles, but an entire crate of the damn things.
Yes, I believe the other 2 are still available if anyone's looking to buy them. But I'm not going to do the legwork for anyone watching because it took me forever, and I feel like, you know, when people finish a game and don't tell you how to beat the boss, I'm kind of like that. Right then, shall we dive straight in and
Let's do so.
Pick up where we left off?
As our Toro Rosso brethren, I've got you showing as an AI person, though, at the moment. I'm assuming that's because...
I'm only just joining the session now. There we go.
There we go. So this is our first time playing as an actual league. So in order for us to be able to do our normal one where we actually take over a team and have an actual teammate proper season... what our Taco Extraordinaire Man has done is basically create a league and then add us in as the drivers to replace the actual real drivers, as opposed to most leagues where you go in as your own team colours and so on and so forth. I don't know, have you played much with the actual team colours and made your own car online yet?
I have, but I don't care for it. I don't. I mean, I can see how it's useful for league racing, but I was hoping for more customization, and there really isn't any.
Agree.
So I admit I forked out like 50 euro cents to get a premium skin for my car, just so I looked a bit different to everybody else. And then that was it.
Oh, wow.
Also, I found the lobbies to be the worst they've ever been. Now, I told the game to fill it with AI, but I'm not seeing any AI here, so I'm wondering if it only does it later.
It said 2 competitors, but it said two players, 20 competitors when I joined. So I'm thinking, yay.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be the worst thing we'd fucked up.
No.
Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready, sir.
Then we start the event.
Ba-ba-bom.
So, yeah, as the more astute will have noticed, we are driving as Toro Rosso this year.
Oh.
Still need to work on a pun for the name, but I am appropriately dressed in, admittedly, last year's Toro Rosso Honda wear.
Still gorgeous.
However, now I am taking... actually, no, I'll stick with balanced for this race, but I don't know how you've felt about this in career mode, and we will get into real F1 eventually, but I think it's worth talking about the game since we haven't.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed this, and maybe it's different because you're driving for Alfa Romeo, but in the Williams, it's crap unless it's on the softest tyres.
There's only 2 of us.
No. Oh, come on. All right, we'll back out. It's fine, it's not the first thing we've fucked up. Can I change it from in here? No.
It's got AI driver... Yeah. AI driver level is 75. How strange. Focus quick to the menu and dive back in again. I've noticed actually this year that tyre wear, in terms of tyre temperatures, is much easier for me to manage this year compared to previous last year's game.
To be honest with you, I think they've just got rid of it. Right, I'm afraid we're both going to have to retire from the league because the race goes on without us, which is the stupidest thing in the world. Oh, you have to leave first, and then I can leave.
I've flounced my way out.
Okay. You have sashayed from the premises.
I have indeed.
Right, I'm setting it up again. Why don't you continue your thoughts while I set this ridiculous nonsense up again, and... I have to say, Cody's not happy with how difficult you've made something that was previously super easy to do.
Yeah. It feels really unintuitive, this whole league setup and creation and running of stuff as well.
And the fact you can only run one.
Oh, can you only run? What run?
Yeah,
one?
you can be in more than one, but you can only manage one.
Well, that's bizarre.
How bizarre. Do, 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 do. Do you remember that song? Oh, we're already on the 90s nostalgia. No, I mean, I agree. First thing I've noticed is that the tyre wear situation is massively improved, but I can't help but think that they've just kind of neutered it because people were complaining about it.
Yeah. That's my online car, by the way, just in case people are watching.
Right. Now, hold on. League is private. Yep. Allow invites from league owner and admins, yes. League owner competes, yes. 20 competitors and 2 spectators. I set the competitors, not the human players. Okay. That's where I ballsed up.
Because you can
set a manual.
You can set the AI as well if you're filled in as an AI as a player to a different level of AI than the actual AI filling up the grid. Because that's what we've done in the Six Axis League that I race in on a Monday, and I couldn't do the first ones because I was doing some stuff elsewhere. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so if you want to, you can make like the people that don't turn up run at like 40 on the AI, but actually have the rest of the AI at 80, and it's like their proper HRT caterums. Good fun. Also, shout out whilst we're just sorting this out. Good friend of mine, Tom Parker, tried out and got through to the F1 Esports Series. Didn't get through to be picked by a team, but he did race for Haas last season in the Esports Series. And you can watch out for him and a very good friend of mine, Cameron Brewster, who is looking after the Haas esports team, and they are actually featured in the pictures on the esports page on the game this weekend, because I've seen everyone take screenshots and go, you look like a complete moron. So in that helpful way that friends do.
Nice shirt, Mom.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, you should have an invite, and hopefully this time we haven't ballsed it up, but you never know.
Done. Invited. And across. Next league. Oh, it's not up. Aha, now it has. It didn't update there for a second. Red Bull.
This game is also buggier than since our PC days, I think.
Yes. The game gets buggier the longer you play it. And I do have quite a lot of just complete crashes out of the game. So I'm hoping that it stays stable enough for us to actually run the full race, because I've very rarely actually been able to get 100% races done on this game because it always crashes, which is not great. And I've uninstalled and reinstalled over and over.
That really isn't good. I tell you what, as well, I've just realised that if we balls up further down the road, we can end up having to skip entire rounds because of Codemaster's incompetence.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so we can't do a, oh no, I've had a disconnect, exit out, restart the race, can we?
No. What cretin came up with this idea? Like, have a league system, fine, but why take away just a one-to-one co-op? I don't get it. They already had it. It was a thing.
Clearly whoever's sorted all of this out has never actually done like full-on proper league racing themselves, because this is just not how a league would be managed anywhere else in the world. Go and have a look at anything based around R Factor 2, iRacing, Racer, Assetto Corsa, et al. Anyway.
Right then, so now we can actually start the podcast. First of all, I don't have a very good setup. I've tried. It may have been because I was driving the Williams, but I'm just not totally into the setup. But we will see how we go. We actually have some AI now, which is good.
Yes.
The one-armed bandit has made the grid. I haven't raced against him in the game yet because I replaced him in mine.
I've not had any driver swaps in my career mode yet either, so no one swapped in the first season.
Oh, good. I mean, like, have you finished one full season?
Yeah, I've been running at 25% race distances just so that the game doesn't then have a fit. But yeah, I'm just at Russia, and no one has done any swaps.
That's surprising because a lot of people were reporting that they usually start swapping already in the mid-season.
Yeah, yeah. What I do find, though, is that the two pretend people are massively overpowered compared to, for me, it's George Russell and Alex Albon.
Yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me because Cody's, I guess, expected you to somehow be invested in these two no-mount wankers you've never heard of.
And then put up with their press releases in the...
Yeah, I mean, if they fell off the grid, right, you wouldn't get those posts anymore. So I guess they're always on the grid, no matter how shit they are. Because for me, Devin Butler's at Toro Rosso, and he's bottom of the pile.
Yeah, but apparently they transition across season to season so that they're always in teams relative to your performance. So you can't actually ever get away from them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So, but what you can do, and I didn't realise, is that you can, if you choose to skip the F2 section in career mode, they don't come with you into the F1 game, so you can have the rest of the F1 grid back again.
I wish someone had told me that. I mean, I kind of like the idea, but I'd like it more if they bothered to record more voice recording for them, so, you know, you could carry on having a dynamic with them.
Yeah, because
it would get a bit repetitive. It would get a bit repetitive that you can only do it with two drivers, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Agreed.
Right, let's see. First hot lap of season 10, sorry.
Double figures.
Let's see how we do.
Nearly legal. What did you do with the damage on this, by the way?
Full.
Oh, God. Okay.
I didn't go for simulation.
Good man.
Because simulation has caused us heartbreaks in the past. Although, I have to say, I don't think we will DNF as much in this version of the game as the last one, because this game, even though it's understeery and the brakes are weird, it's the curbs are way more forgiving.
Yes.
So I'm not like throwing it into the wall randomly anywhere near as much as I was with last year's game, which is encouraging. While the ERS drains quickly.
Absolutely on this game. That's the one big thing actually, and it doesn't pull back nearly as quickly either. So you can't run at medium and keep it like at a decent temperature or pace. It still drains.
Now, I've only driven in practices since the 1.05 patch, so I'm not entirely sure what's changed, but I read the patch notes, and apparently they've made the AI even more aggressive.
More aggressive and faster around the corners.
Yeah, which is two things that I definitely didn't need them to do. Because they already were, to my mind, very aggressive. They're a lot better at defending, which is good, because I'm actually enjoying my races. Although what I'm finding is that I'm at Williams with Georgie Russell, right? First of all, George was massively overpowered. So he and I were regularly breaking into Q3, even from the start of the game.
Yeah.
Like he qualified like 11th and 12th in most races so far. He tends to drop back a bit during the race. But what I find is that the cars, at least in my hands, in a total no man's land. Like the Toro Rossos and the Saubers seem to be the worst.
Yeah.
And then nearly. Toro Rossos and Saubers seem to be the worst, and then it's kind of like us with the Haas's and the McLarens, and over race distance, those two cars are better, so they pull away, and I end up being on my own. Like usually Stroll is behind me and Grosjean's in front of me, and I can't see either of them. So
okay.
I felt the AI was a little duff to begin with anyway, because you shouldn't have the car, the field spread is way too big. That was a hell of a lap you set. You must have a good setup.
Yeah, I'm going a bit faster this time round, but I'm going to run out of airs. Oh, that was terrible. Cut the corner. Oh, barrier, not.
Right, before we transition into F1 news, I want to put something to you and get your views on it. I was watching the British Grand Prix the other day, and of course we will come to review that, but I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say. I think this is the best looking grid we've had in a long time.
In terms of drivers or cars or...
Arguably both, but I was actually talking about liveries.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's not a gross car out there, I don't think.
No, I mean, I'm actually in love with the new McLaren, because they fixed all the complaints I had about it looking so anemic before. I think the Williams has just continually grown on me. I think it looks fantastic.
I love that livery. It's so, anything that's got a cross shade and a blend gets me a little bit moist.
Yeah. Obviously, we're both fans of the Renault. We're both fans of the Racing Point.
Yep.
I like the matte red on the Ferrari. I like the revised Mercedes livery. I love the Toro Rosso livery. I love the Red Bull livery. Like, it's the best looking collection of cars we've had in a very long time, and we've actually got some diversity of colour for once.
Yeah, which is nice, because there's nothing that gets me more annoyed if there's just like loads and loads of red and so on and so forth, or blue, or black.
Yeah.
Long may it continue.
Right then, with that important business out of the way, let's get down to real F1. Now, it's been a while since we missed the Austrian Grand Prix. because I was in Finland and we haven't recorded since then. I didn't enjoy Austria so much, but let me get your views first of all, very quickly, on the incident with Leclerc and Verstappen in Austria.
So, my views on this have swayed over the course of time. And initially, at the time, I was enraged. And I think it was because I was... For me, Leclerc defended the track itself, was respectful, but left plenty of racing room. Almost Kimi-esque to me, where you felt like there was room there to trust, and Verstappen just abused it all over the place. For me, I thought that move was unfair and marginal, but precedent had been set because in F2 there'd already been the same issues before, with, I've forgotten who was the person that done it, but Guan Yanzhou was basically pushed off the track in the battle for the lead in the F2 race, and nothing happened there either. So I kind of immediately thought, well, nothing's going to happen. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so I thought it was rude and unfair. Where I think I got my knickers in a twist more was that wasn't fair previously, by going off track, gaining an advantage, pushing people off the track and that kind of thing. And there had been a tone shift, but no one had signalled to the external public that this was now allowed, and no one seemed to have told Charles Leclerc either, which is why he then gave him a bit of his own medicine in Britain, which was tasty and joyful. But I just wish they'd have came out and said, you know what, we're going to let everyone race, go nuts, but don't smash into each other. And then we would have been clear on where the line was.
Well, see, the thing was, at the time, I was also enraged, but I realise with hindsight now, it's just because I so wanted Leclerc to get that result.
Yeah.
No, because I really felt that he deserved it, and Ferrari just keep doing their absolute best to screw him over, and I don't know why. It's like in Britain, where if it wasn't for Vettel hitting Verstappen, Ferrari had fucked him over by not putting him under the safety car. Anywho,
Sirens.
My position was kind of, if the FIA are consistent, and I wasn't aware of the issue in F2, I was looking back to the incident with Rosberg a few years ago.
Yes.
Where it was deemed it was a penalty offence, and I thought, well, in that case, ooh, that's tasty. The gap between us is closed. I found out why I'm so slow, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Those watching will know on the MFD in the bottom right of the screen that for some reason I'm carrying 21 laps of fuel.
Oh my god. Chonky monkey.
Yeah, so I'm a bit fat. Art imitating life. Yeah, I kind of felt like if they were going to be consistent, it should have been a penalty. However, I didn't want there to be a penalty because, first of all, the Dutch fans would have rioted, but also that's the one time that I've kind of felt, yeah, do you know what? It was a good show, and maybe we should just take it for what it was.
Yeah. I agree.
So, overall, I didn't really enjoy the Austrian Grand Prix so much, but it certainly wasn't the worst race of the season, and I just wanted to get your views on that particular incident because it was kind of it was one of the standout moments for me, really.
I think you're right about it being a standout moment because that now sets a very specific precedent of that is now allowed. You can't now kind of go back from that now being the limit of aggression, and boy didn't we see that from everyone in Silverstone, and to be fair, further down the field in Austria and places like that as well, that actually this kind of PS4 like side by sides, throwing it up the inside, not really caring because there's no barrier on the other side of the track because we're driving around in giant tarmac runoffs. This is now what racing is allowed to be, and I think we'll come on to it, I'm sure, but I think that's one of the reasons why I think Vettel struggles, because he can't cope with that, being from a generation previous and just smashes into the back of people trying to imitate the current level of what we think racing and driving is.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. I'm just looking at our times. We are separated by 0.190 seconds. I am fastest in Sector 1 by nearly 3/10, actually. Wow. But you were kicking my backside in Sectors 2 and 3. So clearly our setups are very different, and we are excelling.
Yes.
I'm also 20th in the speed trap, apparently.
I saw that when I was on board with you. That was very strange.
Yeah, I guess I'm making it up in the corners, eh? Yeah, I wasn't happy with the setup in career mode either, but I put it down to the Williams being a heap of dog shit. Anyway, yeah. Before we get into the review of Britain, which most people watching this live or on replay will have seen it, as I go into TV camera mode and have a look at. Oh shit! No. No! Oh, mate!
That'll teach you to go on board with me.
Do you know what? That's where I was always losing it last year.
Yeah.
I was losing it constantly there last year, and now I sort of ease off on that curb. I've switched to Giovinazzi now, out of embarrassment. But that is, I think the Alfa Romeo is a fantastic looking machine. Oh, mate, I'm really sorry. That means you are starting 15th.
Not to worry. It's
already bumped you down to 15th.
That's good that it does that already.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going out again, so I guess we'll just chat, right?
Yeah.
We'll get into the British Grand Prix review soon, but first of all, I want to talk about something that's bothering me. Right. So if you read motorsport.com, autosport.com, BBC F1, any of the blogs or anything, and maybe you've noticed this too, or every other day there's an article about how important it is for F1 to change X, Y, or Z. and it's constant. It's just continual. And what scares me is, yes, all right, it's boring with Mercedes right now, but looking at some of the racing we've had this season in the midfield, I kind of think that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit, because now, initially the 2021 regulations were, okay, we're going to try and get another engine supplier in and keep the costs down, and now it's changed to we're reintroducing ground effect. And then Autosport immediately ran a piece saying ground effect won't improve racing, here's why. And it was looking at other aero changes that were designed to improve racing that ultimately failed.
Yes.
But still, they were advocating for change. And then an article that really got me riled up was in Autosport just yesterday, with the title, F1 has to sacrifice its DNA for the sake of the spectacle.
What?
And I didn't even open it because I knew what it was advocating for immediately. It was basically advocating for spec cars. I'm sure of it. Now, here's the thing. Sorry to cut you off, but I'll just finish my point.
Yeah.
Today, I went out for some Mexican food, because obviously I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the bus line that runs by my apartment, I took an electric bus built by Mercedes. Really great piece of tech, actually. And that is actually using technology refined in Formula One. So it actually has an ERS system. Cool. It brakes, recovers the heat, goes back into the battery. Once you start to standardise, I mean, that sounds like a small contribution, right? But once you start to standardise the cars, manufacturers aren't getting this kind of R&D input anymore.
Sure.
And the engineering has always been part of the sport. But what's your take on this? Because I'm kind of torn, right? I think if it wasn't for the gap between the top three teams and the rest, like, if we remove the top three teams, this would have been the best season on record.
Yeah, because it would have been all over the show. It would have been like 2012 all over again.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think there's... and the reports seem to be that they are moving a bit towards some of the aero standardisation of stuff. And I guess this depends on... Racing Point are terrible. this kind of really depends on what do you standardise to improve quote-unquote racing. And they appear to have gone for this ground effect, which I guess means that the standardisation of parts and so on and so forth. I think, though, that I'm going to be annoying and have one foot in one camp and one in the other. I think there's room for some more standardisation, but I still want there to be like a push for technology, because otherwise, what does F1 then stand for? Because otherwise it's not necessarily the pinnacle of technology. So they should be doing that and then feeding it back out again. I think where F1 misses a trick is showing that kind of stuff, because I'd have had no idea that existed and that F1's technology had made that happen, and they need to shout more about that. And then I think people would then take a bit more of a view,
a bit more of a holistic view, right?
Yeah, of looking into it, because then they'll be like, oh right, well I can see how that racing then translates into my everyday world, and then maybe not be so dramatic about wanting explosions everywhere, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing as well, right? Can you remember a time that a regulation change has improved racing immediately? Because normally it just spreads the field out, right?
Yeah, it always does, because it's between the haves and have-nots. So, and then you spend the next few years bringing everyone back together again. I guess what's been really interesting is that in this generation, it hasn't really come back together properly. It's still a two-tier formula. But if you're right, if you took away the top three, everyone's within basically a second, apart from the Williams just outside it.
Yeah, and they're closing that gap, particularly Russell.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've paid attention to his lap times during races, but sort of the last 4 or 5 races, he's actually been getting some good pace out of that car.
Well, in Austria, he beat home Magnussen, which was good fun to listen to Magnussen bitch about that in the paddock pass with Buxton at the end. For me, there's I've never known so much drama over some rule changes before that's been so publicly yo-yoed back and forth. And you're right, Autosport are a right little cop-out for this, because I detest, but I can't help but watch their YouTube channel when it comes to F1 discussions. And they've got the weirdest selection of motley crew that sit down on a sofa. And the one that I watched, might have been yesterday, was why F1 should never bring back refueling.
Yeah, I saw the title of that. I didn't watch it.
And it's just basically they were saying that it doesn't spice up the races or anything whatsoever. And I was thinking, depends on the strategies that you've got. You fundamentally have an issue, and David Coulthard was saying about this in the F1 Voice Q&A, which I had on in the background yesterday, and he's saying bring back a tyre war, because if everything else is individualised and then we do a standardised tyre, which is where everything then connects to the ground, no wonder you don't get any variance, because that's the one thing that is the same that everyone has to deal with. So if you have different tyres, invariably one tyre manufacturer will get one circuit better than the other, and it will mix up the grid a bit.
He's got a fair point, but I'm not sure F1 can stand another tyre war because of the way the costs completely spiraled out of control. And
exactly.
And I don't know, I think the single make tyre has worked quite well for everyone except Haas.
Yeah.
I think it has helped the racing, although I noticed Pirelli have announced that they're moving away from high degradation tyres for 2021, and I was thinking, that's a fucking terrible idea.
Is that so that they can then focus on outright wheel-to-wheel racing, which will spread the field out further? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I don't think it actually does us any good.
Gearing yourself up.
I get the impression that all it will do is allow teams with an advantage to just run and run and run and run and go ever faster,
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to make races that were already in the bag be more in the bag. I mean, can you imagine if Bottas and Hamilton only had to do a one-stop during the last Grand Prix?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it would have been a total snooze fest. And I disagree fundamentally with the idea that refueling wouldn't spice up racing. Because not only have you got the... Well, actually, I think last year's tyre system with refueling could have really spiced things up. You know, you run light on fuel with the hypersofts, and then come in and fuel up and put on something harder, or vice versa. I mean, and it's not like we haven't experimented with the high deg tyres, right? Because if you think just a few years ago we were talking in terms of option and prime, and then that moved to super soft, soft, medium, and hard, and then we got super hards and hyper softs and ultra softs and mega squidgy softs and whatever the fuck else.
Yeah.
And it has, to my mind, improved the show. I think high deg tyres, I know it's frustrating for the drivers, but it has spiced things up. I think people just get frustrated when someone's tyres go properly off. That wasn't a great lap, Ben. When someone's tyres go properly off and they can no longer race, as we saw with Leclerc against Verstappen in Austria.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me. So I think if we bring 3 compounds to every race, make sure that everyone needs to run all 3 compounds during a race. I'd love to see that in, and I'd like to see a minimum lap distance covered on each type of tyre, so that you have to run all 3. It might be a bit artificial, but I think that's why I really enjoy some of the stuff that goes on in Formula 2, because everyone knows that the soft tyres are a heap of shit most races, but they have to do 6 laps on them, and by lap 4 they're a couple of seconds slower because they're so high deg and they're skidding around everywhere. But if you've got someone that's got a deft skill and can make it work, they might be able to get 8, 9 or 10 and then gain so much by not having to run the harder tyre for so long. And if we had soft, medium and hard, and you had to run 5 laps on all compounds at least, if in a dry race, I think that would be quite interesting. It would throw up all kinds of weird and wonderful scenarios. It would also set up, I think, as well, some of this last gasp for 6th place to go and get a fastest lap point, because then everyone would have to come in and do a pit, and it would be like a weird little quali show at the end.
Do you know, when you first mentioned that idea, I didn't like it, but it's actually, as you've explained it, I can kind of see the logic behind it. Because, I mean, I'm kind of okay right now with the 3 compounds you have to run 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because that allows teams to run entirely different strategies and enables them to get the most out of their particular package.
Yes.
Which is what we want to see, right? But I don't know, I think that combined with refueling could really really spice things up. But again, I'm careful what I wish for, right? Because to be honest, for all its faults, I am kind of enjoying this season. I'm just so sick of Mercedes always finding a way to win.
Yeah. I'm enjoying everything from 7th down. Well, it was 6th down, but now Gasly seems to have woke up. Tusk. I've been living for that.
That's where the action is, right?
Yeah, and I just... the races where it's been dull for me is where they've been so obsessed with, will Ferrari swap their drivers? No, they won't. They favour Vettel. Is Hamilton going to get past Bottas? Of course he is. Bottas is not going to win. So once we get past that and seeing where Verstappen will be able to drag that Red Bull into, then I'm dealt with the front lot, and I just want to focus on the scraps going on behind. And so long as the race director understands that that's where the action is and will quite happily show it, I'm entertained.
Well, that's actually something that bothered me in Britain, because the first few laps, it was always constantly on board with Lewis Hamilton, but after the first 4 laps, he backed off, if you remember. I think it was 4 laps. He backed off to cool down. And you could see in the background, Norris and Ricciardo going wheel to wheel, side by side through several corners, and they weren't showing it. And then there was a part as well where Leclerc was fighting Verstappen, and they didn't change the camera, so you saw them going into a corner, but you didn't see them going round the corner. And the commentators were going mad, and I was like, that sounds like a great move. I wish I'd fucking seen it. because like the camera just didn't show it. I think they have gone a little bit in the last few years back towards just focusing on the front cars, which is something that plagued coverage in the 90s, and I absolutely hated. Because, we all remember those old qualifying sessions, where, a Prost is out qualifying, or a Jordan with those wicked Mugen Honda units that I always loved to see qualifying because they had a special quali engine that was just a beast.
Yes.
But then they'd be like, oh yes, Damon Hill's going round and Giancarlo Fisichella, but oh look, there's Jacques Villeneuve and he's putting his helmet on. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
We want to see the cars that are on track. And it's the same, I think this year has gone backwards over previous years because although all the action is in the midfield, you're just constantly on board with Hamilton or Leclerc or Vettel.
Because they're a victim almost of their own success, aren't they? Because they're so far out front, no one wants to watch them, so therefore they don't get the sponsor coverage. So I almost feel like I wonder if after previous years where they were just blasting away and no one really cared, because they got no TV coverage, they've almost had to write into the contract that we need to be shown X amount of time, even if we're leading, or something weird.
Yeah, I mean, I could see F1 agreeing to that as well, actually, because that's where that's how money comes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, bit of a mess, really. How am I looking on time? Do I need to go again?
I think you're good, mate. Vettel and Verstappen aren't into Q3, but I'm assuming they went out on the slower compound and they'll go out again. But you're 7/10 ahead of Kimi.
We need to turn the difficulty up. This is the difficulty I'm playing career mode on. I'm really struggling, but suddenly I'm good here. Hey ho. Okay then. As we're both able to focus a little bit more right now, while waiting for this to run down.
Yes.
We'll come to the British Grand Prix shortly, but shall we tackle the hot topic of the week?
Oh, I know what this topic must be, surely.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I have been completely hooked on Twitter.
It's the gift that keeps giving, isn't it?
Yeah, every day, every morning, it's the first thing I do. In fact, I'm going to check right now as we wind the clock down on qualifying. I'm going to see if he said anything mental today, because it's almost certain that he has. Let's have a look here.
Our bearded wonder. Poor energy.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's just one from yesterday, which allow me to recite for you. It's a picture of Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko, and it reads, "The head of Red Bull Racing, Professor Helmut, with Mr. Ginger Spice, hearing news regarding Mr. Story. The world's leading energy drink is rich energy. Hashtag better than Red Bull. Hashtag Professor Helmut. Not Helmut, Helmet.
Oh.
Hashtag Ginger Spice."
Right.
So shall we run down a timeline? And for the uninitiated, I'm sure there's not many, but obviously Rich Energy appeared on the scene last year as a potential buyer for Force India, as was. The administrators didn't think they were suitable to run the team as a going concern, which is the smartest observation an administration company has ever made, because I was terrified that they were going to buy them.
Yeah.
Rich also falsely claimed to have already injected $30 million into the team, which was subsequently proven to be shit. And in fact, Companies House lists them as having assets of £582. However, they showed up with a CEO that looks like that bloke from ZZ Top, who continually makes larger-than-life, bold, outlandish claims and statements. He's very un-PC, he's very outspoken. He does look like he'd belong in a lesbian biker gang. And obviously the questions arose at that point already as to who they were. And no one could report finding cans of this drink anywhere. But he didn't give up. And our plucky protagonist then hooked up with Williams and was actually a guest of Williams at the US Grand Prix, where he had verbally agreed a contract with Claire Williams to be the title sponsor for Williams for this season. And Claire and her marketing team had booked a dinner table in Austin where they were going to meet for dinner and to sign the contract. And Mr. Story stood her up, leaving her in the restaurant to sign with Haas.
Should have been the writing on the wall there, shouldn't it?
Yeah, because Haas wanted less money. Now, obviously, this was announced, and I was worried already for Williams, but fortunately they found a more reputable title sponsor who are actually real and do sell phones, which by all accounts are pretty decent, and we'll talk about them in a bit.
Okay.
But they signed their deal with Haas for 15 million this season, 17 million next season, and 19 million in the third season. We didn't know that until the other day when he released the contract that he shouldn't have been releasing, but decided to put it up on Twitter.
I didn't know that either. Amazing.
Anyway, he came on board with Haas. We're still attending Grand Prix, which must have been awkward if he bumped into Claire at any point. And people were questioning Haas, who is this joker? You can't buy the drink. What's going on? Have you done your due diligence? Gunther Steiner said, yes, we've done our due diligence, but also let us not forget that this is the man who re-signed Romain Grosjean. So maybe he's not the right person to ask. Who knows? So he claimed, yeah, it's all above board, totally legit, very happy to have them on board. They launched the car, they changed the name of the team to Rich Energy Haas F1. Black and gold livery, everything cushy. Everything's super good. Then in pre-season testing, Haas set a time in the first pre-season test faster than that of the Red Bulls. So immediately he took to Twitter to announce that they were undeniably better than Red Bull, both as a drink and their mere presence in Formula One had powered Haas to this glorious performance that would see Red Bull shamed forever and Dietrich Mateschitz forever cast into exile by the bearded wonder. Now, where things took a twist was at the French Grand Prix, I believe it was, or was it the Austrian?
Yeah.
One of them.
Austrian.
It's so completely mad that I've totally lost track. Obviously, the Haas had, frankly, an embarrassing showing. I mean, truly embarrassing. That car looks a complete mess at the moment. And the Rich Energy Twitter account publicly announced that they were terminating the contract because of poor performance and the PC culture in Formula One, which was inhibiting their business. Now, where things get particularly interesting is there was minority shareholders in Rich Energy, some of whom are quite reputable, like there's a bloke from Sainsbury's, another venture capitalist whose name I forget, but the point is these are people that are known in the world of finance and business, quite well trusted. They've been convinced to get on board with the Rich project after they'd signed the Haas deal, because, it looked legit. Yeah. The press obviously tried to get hold of them because they couldn't get hold of William Story, and initially they span it as, well, it's a rogue employee in charge of the Twitter account. Where things get extra piquant and spicy is it turns out that the person in charge of the Rich Energy Twitter account, and the only person with access to the login, was the CEO himself. So he'd done it himself. Now, what's happening at present is that the minority shareholders have told Haas, we want to oust William Story, we want to carry on the deal. Apparently they've succeeded in court in ousting him, but William Story posted on Twitter that he'd already transferred the rights to Rich Energy to a new company, and they ousted him from the old company. What's unclear is that Rich Energy lodged a name change the other day to Lightning Volt, which is a fucking horrible name. It's as bad as Racing Point. But what's unclear is whether this is the CEO renaming Rich Energy or the old Rich Energy with the new ownership changing the name of that. That's totally unclear at this time, because they both claimed it's them in one way or another. Now, obviously the Twitter meltdown didn't stop there. It continued post-haste during the British Grand Prix, and this is still up, so you can go see this if you go to the Rich Energy Twitter. And by the way, they have changed their logo at last. You will notice a picture of William Story behind the wheel of a milk float in Haas colours. He's photoshopped that himself and tweeted it at Haas directly with the quote, "Nice start, boys." Now, this is beautiful for many things, because the true beauty of this and how mental it is that he's supposed to be mocking them, but he's photoshopped himself as the milk float driver.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either. Yeah.
Like, what's he trying to do?
Yeah, very confusing. And his Photoshop skills are frankly shocking. Just as much of just as good as his business acumen at the moment. And why would you do that to your title sponsors, who, and because Haas as well have got, they're having to be very careful, because they're still having to run the sponsor logos, because even though he's screaming around going, "It's cancelled," whatever, the minute they don't put the sponsors on, they're in breach of contract themselves, so he can then have them over a barrel, because him shouting on Twitter that it's all gone wrong and he doesn't want to do it anymore doesn't stand for anything, I guess, legally in court. So, absolute clusterfuck.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, the minority shareholders have said, all credit to Haas, they've handled this very well, and they have. Like, I have to give them credit, although Gunter Steiner did say to the press, well, I don't think it reflects badly on the team. I would be inclined to disagree. Because what this shows was, and you and I have said this all along, that actually Gene's appetite to fund this thing really isn't there, because 15 million for title sponsorship is way, way, way below the going rate.
Absolutely. Especially for a team that was running in the contention for fourth in the constructors the year that they signed that. I'd have been thinking double, surely.
Yeah, about 30 million for title sponsorship. 30 to 40 million is quite common. I know Philip Morris pays somewhere in the region of 50 million to Ferrari, 50 to 60, I believe. And I know that Petronas pay about 50 million to Mercedes. But, for a mid-pack or back-of-the-grid team, about 30 to 40 million is kind of what you're expecting. I believe Williams are a little bit under that, something like 27 million, if I recall correctly. But at least Williams have done their due diligence and signed with a company that is actually a company. And I want to make a quick shout-out to Rocket, actually, because I actually quite like the look of some of their phones. Their phones are on the market now. And why do I like them, do you say? Well, first of all, it's got a 3D display, like they've brought 3D back to phones, and they've got their own movie store where you can buy 3D movies to watch on your phone, which I think is kind of a cool concept. But here's the cool thing. As we know in America, healthcare is private and very expensive, and their model is that you buy a Rocket phone and you get health insurance as a bonus, which I think is a really interesting model.
That's not something that I would have automatically put two and two together to get four with, but I quite like the sound of it.
Yeah, it's kind of ethical, isn't it, really? And, credit to Rocket, because they've also... they've been in the news recently as well, because they were getting some difficult questions because of the team's performance and because of stuff around Robert Kubica. Mm-hmm. And they said, first of all, we sponsored Williams because we're British, they're British, and it felt right. We admire their heritage, and we're very happy with the exposure we've got. All the metrics show that we're actually getting a much bigger brand awareness return than we anticipated, and that's why we've extended the deal before the season's over. Cool. Happy news for Rocket and Williams, actually. So congrats to them. Anyway, back on topic. So back to the wacky world of Mr. Story, right? Now, if you go to his Twitter, he's posted. I just set the fastest lap with.
Over a second.
Oh no, I actually did. I did take the fuel out. The difficulty level's way too low, isn't it? We'll have to change it between rounds. He's released the legal documents from all this ongoing stuff, but it doesn't even end there, my friends. It does not even end there, because Uncle Ben has an extra story for you, which is, aside from being sued still by White Bikes over their logo being a blatant copy, and it is a blatant copy. You look at them side by side, and you can tell it is a blatant copy. And them being sued now by Haas, because Haas now want them to pay the full 3 years up front to terminate the contract.
Yeah.
But They're also now being sued by Red Bull. And he posted that online as well. Red Bull are taking him to court over defamation because he's making claims about the quality of their product without evidence. He's also taking their gives you wings trademark and like manipulating it and using that to publicise his own brand. You can actually see, because of him sharing it online, you can go and look up what they're exactly suing him for. But basically, he's in a lot of trouble. Haas also are in a lot of trouble, let us not forget, because, as you pointed out, Simon, they're now having to drive round with logos of a company that's ostensibly dragging them through the shit until this is sorted out.
Do they then...
And depending... Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
And depending on whether it's the continuing company or the new one that's going with Lightning Bolt, does that mean Haas is going to get a new livery?
That's exactly okay. We would go in the same way. I was wondering, do they then become Lightning Bolt title sponsoring, and does that contract carry over? Does that then mean that they have to negotiate new terms? Do they now, having seen the fact that they aren't the full fastest car, then go, actually, we think you're only worth 12 million? Lol. There's all kinds of weird and wonderful things that kind of will pop out from that. Also, as well, as soon as I think of Lightning Bolt, and I did see it on Twitter when this was announced, I immediately think of Tesco's Blue Charge, which has got like a Blue Lightning's like clip art thing, and I can just see like a lightning strike going through the car. There's ways that you could make that actually not look shit, but I don't trust them not to do so around the black and gold and so on and so forth if they keep that as the colours. There's so much that's worrying me about all of this. What I found really interesting, so I've got some contacts that are that work at Haas, and they knew of none of this when it all hit the fan. So it was completely off of his own back. Oh, that was quite cool. All of the cars all came out of the pit lane at exactly the same time.
Yeah, I'm watching the same thing.
The awkward thing at the same time, and I'm assuming Story wouldn't have had any clue of this whatsoever, is that internally in Haas, one of their truck drivers had been in a massive car accident and was being admitted in, as this was all going off, into a coma. So the team weren't even looking at any of this going on outside. And it wasn't until people were alerting them of, have you seen what this twat's been up to? Because they were busy sorting out that incident behind the scenes. So they were blindsided completely. So hope that staff member gets better soon. But yeah, they were completely preoccupied with their own internal issue. And then that twat comes out with that. So you kind of go, oh, you could have chosen your time to have a wobbly a little bit better. And then the fact that this has continued on in such a public, awkward way, I think just raises even more of a, God, he's an absolute nutcase. And it's interesting. So just diving off slightly on a tangent, I've been... there's a journalist called John Ronson. I don't know if you are aware of him. I wasn't. I've only spotted a TED talk of him. And he has an amazing book called The Psychopath Test. And I've just finished the audio book of it. And it just is basically Mr. Story as a book. And it's essentially saying about how the psychopath test came to be, and how actually there's like hundreds of questions that you get asked to see whether or not you are or aren't a psychopath. And it's about corporate psychopaths and how the density, like one person in 100 essentially is considered to be a psychopath. But when you get to CEO level, it's 12 in 100. And I was just like, this was a timely read, because the guy is absolutely fucking nuts. And I can only see it being absolute carnage. But it's in that borderline of having the bollocks to go out there and talk up about your brand and be absolutely fantastic about it, but also coming off completely crazy. And he's just gone over the balance. And I wouldn't go near him if he wanted to do another company himself. Yeah, bizarre.
Here's the thing. I work for a big publicly listed company. And I was talking with, one of the board and some senior managers about this ongoing Hearth saga. And I said, the thing that puzzles me most is not what he's been doing, but here's the thing. He wasn't from wealth. So he's had to go into meetings with wealthy and influential people, and he's left with their money. Because this all came out in this.
Oh, my game's crashed. Well done, F1. 2019. It will break my live stream as soon as it comes off. So I'm just going to quickly type in the chat. So as soon as you come out from the error checking status, which mine is stuck at 0% on. Ah, this game. I wonder if that will then say that the race is done as well. Yeah. This is bizarre. I can't get out of the error status either. I'm just stuck at 0%. This game, I've never known an F1 game so bad. Oh,